So, पहली बात तो ना, the irony in our country is that health insurance is usually purchased as a tax mitigation measure rather
Hmm.
than a health risk mitigation measure. टैक्स कम कराने के लिए आप पॉलिसी लेते हो, अपने सेहत के रिस्क को संभालने के लिए नहीं लेते हो. द क्वेश्चन इज, अगर 10 लाख की पॉलिसी है और खर्चा 50 का है, तो बाकी 40 लाख कहाँ से जा रहे हैं?
Right.
We were shocked. I was personally shocked to know that Indians, you and I, we spend
Hmm.
anywhere between $50 billion to $72 billion a year.
Welcome back to Fintech Ki Baats Part 2, Dhande Ki Baat, wherein we'll deep dive into the business of Qube Health and try to understand what's going on in the healthcare and insurtech landscape. Today we have with us the amazing Mr. Chris George, with whom we had a really insightful conversation on his entrepreneurship journey, and he shared some amazing anecdotes and tips and tricks. So if you haven't checked it out yet, just go back and check it out. You'll find the link somewhere here. If not, just search and you'll find it. Anyways, coming back to the present, Mr. Chris, thank you so much for doing this. It has been wonderful so far. Having said that, let's get on to the next part of the conversation, Dhande Ki Baat. We'd love to hear from you about Cube Health, what's happening in the industry, and how is the new revolution coming in. So let's take it from the top. What's the origin story of Cube Health, and how did you come up with the name?
Okay. Well, so first is we wanted to choose a name that was phonetically easy to pronounce, regardless of what part of India or the world that you came from. It's like the word Sony, like for Sony TV or whatnot. So Sony,
Right.
आप देश में कहीं पे भी चले जाओ, anybody can say it. So we wanted to find a name like that. So Cube, in many ways, is very easy to kind of pronounce,
Hmm.
but it
Right.
it it comes from a slightly geeky, slightly, maybe some people may find it boring, but I'll still say it. In Greek mythology, there is
Hmm.
this concept of Metatron's cube. So Metatron was this type of a angel or an archangel or some
Oh.
some divine person, and he
Hmm.
basically created this cube which consisted of some 13 circles that were all connected with straight lines. If you
Oh.
see the image, you will, if you just Google Metatron's cube, you'll kind of see it. The
Hmm.
idea of those 13 circles kind of interconnected together was basically that it represents all life forms that are in existence, and it is in many ways like a blueprint of creation. And it symbolizes balance and harmony and illustrating how all life is kind of connected together. So we felt that in many ways is what we were trying to do with
Right.
healthcare and finance, was trying to bring it all into harmony. Uh,
Hmm.
hence, Q.
Okay, amazing. So that's a really interesting concept. I think if possible, I'll try and put up an image of Metatron's cube somewhere here. And if you are looking at this video and you're not able to see the image, feel free to Google it. Having said that, let's talk about what exactly does Cube Health do, and what exactly are you guys into? So over to you.
Sure. So, in one sentence, if I were to describe, we are a healthcare payments company. Uh, some of our users call it the Zomato Gold for healthcare or the Swiggy Dine Out for healthcare. Essentially, you use the Cube app to
Hmm.
make healthcare payments for yourself or your family anywhere in India, wherever UPI is accepted.
Hmm.
If you use Cube to make a payment, you get an instant cashback, and you
Wow.
get up to 10% cashback over and above whatever the healthcare merchant gives you. If you're maybe buying 5,000 rupees worth of medicines for your family every month, you're going to
Hmm.
essentially bring the cost down to 4,500 because you'll get 500 rupee cashback. So that's
Oh,
point one.
amazing.
Point two, if you have a healthcare expense which is slightly high, and you don't have the money for it right now, let's say you want to get a LASIK eye operation done, your grandmother needs a knee replacement surgery, or things of that, or you have a dental expenditure which is fairly high, you
Right.
don't need to use your credit card because we give you up to 10 lakh rupees, which you can pay back with no interest and no fees. So effectively, it is free money that is available to you to pay for health or medical expenses for yourself or your family. The catch, which I'm sure that you will wonder, the catch is that we are not retail. We are available only if your employer has taken Cube and offered it to you for free. So that's basically what our product is. In from a sector standpoint, we are called a healthcare fintech company.
Interesting. So I think this overall sounds really brilliant. I was super excited about it until you told me it's only available for if your employer has, kind of availed it as a service. So now's the time to go and push your employers to do that.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
but having said that, right, let's get into the inside of the industry and what was the need to kind of
Yeah.
build this kind of a Zomato Gold for health kind of an ecosystem out there. What was the need for this?
So this is actually where I'm going to throw some statistics at you, and
Sure.
hopefully it's not boring enough, but
No, we
hopefully you
love your
will.
statistics at Fintech Ki Baat.
Well, so here's the thing, right? So health insurance normally is the first thing that comes to mind when you think about healthcare expenses, right? Yeah, insurance mein cover ho jayega. But the reality is that even after 36, 37 years since health insurance was launched in India, less than 35% of the population has health insurance.
Hmm.
And the people that do, maybe like you and I, we
Hmm.
are almost always underinsured.
True.
मतलब आपके पास 10 लाख की पॉलिसी होगी, आपके परिवार का खर्चा पूरी जिंदगी भर 50 लाख से ऊपर होने वाला है. Now, as a result of this, the question is, अगर 10 लाख की पॉलिसी है और खर्चा 50 का है, तो बाकी 40 लाख कहाँ से जा रहे हैं?
Right.
It is going from your family savings.
True.
This is the reason why in India, everyone says save for your old age. What they really mean is to save money to pay for healthcare in your old age. We were shocked. I was personally shocked to know that Indians, you and I, we spend
Hmm.
anywhere between $50 billion to $72 billion a year. This money is money that we pay from our savings, credit
Hmm.
cards, debit cards, UPI, cash that is kept, gold, you name it, right? So we operate in the non-insurance part of the sector, and we
Right.
believe that sector is massive and it continues to remain a problem, and somebody needed to solve it. So the two things we wanted to do was, first, we said we need to reduce the cost of whatever is being spent out there. Number two, we wanted to provide capital so that your consumption for healthcare goes up. And let me explain, take a minute and explain, right? Because you have a no cost EMI available on buying a new cell phone, more people are buying a cell phone. Imagine if you have no cost EMI that is available for everyday medical expenses, which are slightly expensive. It can be maternity, it can be, cataract, it can be dental, eye, skincare, or even emergency medical expenses. Imagine how many people would actually go in for the care that they
Right.
really need. That's really the genesis for it.
Interesting. No, I think this is really this really hits a sweet spot when you talk about it that way. Because I think even if I just introspect and look at how I have spent over the last few years in healthcare, right? Uh, Most of the time, we don't claim from the policy until and unless it's a really big expense that comes when you are admitted for something in hospital and all of that. But if I'm going for a OPD procedure, if I'm going for a dental thing, or if I'm going for a scan, MRI scan, or an X-ray or something, it just goes out of your pocket, and there is nothing that you can do to cover it. And in many cases, sometimes if you're doing a set of tests in a specific month, it kind of hits your monthly budget if you're a middle class person. Like an MRI nowadays is around 20,000 at a good center. And if you are asked to do three, four MRIs in a month, you end up spending almost your entire salary as a middle class person. So that is essentially when you realize, यार ये insurance में cover हो रहा है नहीं हो रहा है, then you
Mhm.
try to fight क्या हो रहा है कैसे हो रहा है, and by the time you figure it out, you already anyways have to pay your invoice as
Mhm.
and when it is released. So that disconnect is there, and I think this really hits home in that aspect.
Absolutely. If I may add to that,
Hmm.
let me paint a picture, right? So
Sure.
let's say एक Indian परिवार में there is you, there is let's say your spouse or a sibling.
Hmm.
Maybe there are some young kids. There are two parents. Maybe there are grandparents, right?
Correct.
Most likely, in your family, somebody or the other has some chronic condition. Blood pressure है, diabetes है, ये है, वगैरह वगैरह,
Hmm.
right? मोस्ट लाइकली साल में एक बार कोई ना कोई तो बुखार वगैरह जुकाम वगैरह हो जाता है, राइट? दिस इज अ नॉर्मल सिनारियो. नाउ इन अ नॉर्मल सिनारियो, फ्रॉम अ क्रोसिन डोलो से लेके the slightly more expensive medicines, doctor visits itself, on an average आप 5,000 रुपए हर महीना खर्चा करते
True.
हैं. Okay. दिस इज फ्रॉम अ डाइजीन. पुदीनरा ले लो से लेके आप डॉक्टर के पास चले गए, आपने एक ब्लड टेस्ट करवा लिया वगैरह वगैरह, ऑल ऑफ दैट काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. If you're a slightly conscious family of healthcare, then you're at least doing a once in a year health checkup, at least for the elderlies in your family.
True.
And that line only goes upwards of the healthcare expenses. Now, all of those expenses you're not even thinking, you're simply using UPI payments to make your payments from your bank account, you're using your credit card, you're using your debit card, cash दे दिया, आप सोच भी नहीं रहे हो, right?
Right.
And that actually accounts for a significant chunk of a household's expense. So आप आटे दाल के बजाय जो खर्चा आता है basically is related to health and medical.
Right.
Right, so this is one. Now on this, if you add things like slightly high expense but not emergency medical expenses, right? Dental treatment करवा लिया, आंखों का treatment करवा लिया, hair, skin, उस type की treatment करवा लिए. These are all elective procedures which normally you say that हाँ ठीक है यार देख लेते हैं. You're using your card. If you go slightly higher to emergency, the list is endless.
Right.
Now I'll give you another context. Let's say you have health insurance, but you happen to go to a hospital which is nearest to your home. They will say sorry, आपके यहाँ पे cashless नहीं है, आपको पहले पे करना पड़ेगा, फिर claim बाद में कर लीजिएगा. Now in
True.
that scenario, you again have to have money to pay upfront. So these are just normal scenarios that exist.
No, definitely, definitely. And in a lot of these cases, a system like yours, a platform like yours, Qube Health, would essentially fill in those a lot of gaps and kind of add that value. Having said that, to kind of give a clearer end-to-end picture, would you be able to take us through a journey of a customer on how would he experience this platform and the benefit? How would that
Sure.
actually happen?
Absolutely. So it begins with your HR telling you that we really care for you. We are giving you company provided health insurance, but we know that that is not enough. So now we are also giving you Cube for free. You are already pre-registered. Please download the Cube app, enter your company official email ID, or you enter your mobile number. आपको OTP आ जाएगा and you log in. As soon as you log in, you can start paying. You simply scan to pay. You
Right.
simply click the scan button, you scan a UPI. जहां पे भी UPI is accepted anywhere in the country, it instantly scans and it instantly recognizes if it is a genuine registered health and medical merchant. So it can be
Nice.
a neighborhood pharmacy, it can be a doctor, it can be a clinic, it can be a hospital, doesn't matter.
Right.
आप मिदनापुर वेस्ट बंगाल में चले जाइए, आप अमरावती में चले जाइए, कहीं पे भी you simply scan it. As soon as you scan it, it will say, how would you like to pay? You're given the options of your own UPI. You can enter your credit card or debit card like you do it on Zomato or Swiggy, and it will promise you and it gives you instant 10% cashback. So that's point number one. Point number two, suppose you enter an amount, you're at a dentist and you enter 15,000 rupees.
Right.
It will say you have a pre-approved credit line that's available, no interest. Would you like to use that? So let's say you type in 15,000. You can choose to pay back in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months. So let's say you say 3 months. Basically, 5,000 a month gets debited from your bank account the next month onwards, and you kind of pay it back. That 15,000 rupees goes directly to that particular dental clinic, and you're done with it. Now, since you are using this, but maybe you realize that actually घर पे दवाइयाँ वगैरह तो मैं नहीं purchase करता. Maybe my wife is, or maybe my parents are, maybe my sister is. So through the Cube app, you can add your family members.
Oh.
Now they all have access to the Cube app, and they all can actually go ahead and spend. So when I said that it's only available through your employer, that is true. But what is also true is maybe you need to find a relative who already has Cube and who's willing to add you to the app.
Interesting, interesting. Got it. I think now this is a lot more clear on essentially how essentially would this platform work if I were a user. Having said that, right, while you were describing the kind of use cases where I would be using it, a term that kind of popped up into my mind that we normally see in your insurance policies or you hear a lot in insurance parlance is out-of-pocket expenditure. And this seems to kind of resonate a lot more with that. So, with context of that, and given that Cube is a lot more aligned towards that piece, uh, would you be able to take a minute and kind of explain what out-of-pocket expenditure essentially is as a term in insurance parlance for a layman?
Sure, absolutely. I love doing that because I generally believe that healthcare and insurance have a concept that हर चीज को complicated बनाओ. So we need to simplify it,
True, true.
right? In
Yes.
many ways. So out of pocket expenditure on healthcare, OOPE on healthcare, is, as the name suggests, it's basically money that you're paying from your pocket. Now,
Right,
you pay from your pocket when health insurance is not paying. So, suppose you have a situation. Let's take, you have a maternity bill coming up, right?
right.
And you say, अच्छा मेरे पास तो इंश्योरेंस है. उन्होंने कहा था कि इंश्योरेंस के अंदर maternity covered है. Now you admit your wife to the hospital, to the for delivery, and then
Hmm.
the hospital says, "Oh, covered तो है, लेकिन only up to 50,000 rupees."
Oh,
So now the bill is 1.5 lakh rupees. You're wondering, oh, I have to now pay 1 lakh rupees. What do? You take out your
hmm.
credit card, or you will say, ठीक है, आप मैं बैंक ट्रांसफर कर देता हूँ.
Right.
That amount that you are paying, which is 1 lakh rupees out of 1.5 lakh, is out of
Hmm.
pocket expense in
True.
simple terms.
Hmm.
But it also includes every other expense जहां पे इंश्योरेंस बिल्कुल नहीं है, जैसे कि दवाइयों पे it is not included.
Right.
Most doctor consultation is not included. Clinics, diagnostic clinics वगैरह, scan, MRI, CT scan, regular blood test करवा लो, those kind of things, it's not included, or there are conditions under which
Hmm.
it is accepted, right? So all of this put together becomes out of pocket expenditure on healthcare, which is 75% in India, right? It's a very massive number that we continue to pay from our pocket.
Makes sense. Makes sense. No, I think that really kind of clears it out. What I also want you to kind of do here for the audience is take a step back and try to kind of throw light on essentially what is covered in a standard insurance policy, a standard health insurance policy, and what are the things that we assume ki cover honge, but it's a naturally surprise that you get, यार ये तो है ही नहीं covered. I
Yeah,
mean, that happens a lot of time. We see it a lot on Twitter
absolutely.
and other places. But yeah, would love to hear it from
So, पहली बात तो ना, the irony in our country is that health insurance is usually purchased as a tax mitigation measure
you.
rather than a health risk mitigation measure. टैक्स कम कराने के लिए आप पॉलिसी लेते हो, अपने सेहत के रिस्क को संभालने के लिए नहीं लेते हो. That's why your CA will most likely advise you कि आप पॉलिसी ले लीजिए as
Right.
opposed to anyone else coming in. But having said that, typically first clarification that one should have in their mind is when you say कि हाँ मेरे पास 10 लाख की पॉलिसी है,
Hmm.
doesn't mean that आपको 10 लाख रुपए मिलेगा in case something goes wrong.
Okay.
What it simply says is
Hmm.
you have to read the documents to understand what are the known as sub limits. There are sub limits for different
Hmm.
kind of procedures.
Hmm.
So 10 lakh के अंदर they have said maternity and delivery is covered, but you have to read the document to understand कि शायद से 50,000 रुपए तक आपको मिल जाएगा, right? Number one. Number two, if you have a requirement, let's say God forbid somebody in your family has got a cardiac issue or a cancer issue, etc., and आप अस्पताल में चले गए,
Right.
easily 30, 40, 50 lakh rupees जाने वाले, right?
Agree.
Doesn't mean that उसमें से 10 लाख रुपए इंश्योरेंस के थ्रू आ जाएगा. What it means is
Oh.
you have to submit your bills, they will check and they will say करके ये चीजें covered हैं, वो चीजें नहीं covered हैं. जो भी अगर covered है 10 लाख के ऊपर नहीं जा सकता, but you never get it, right? So the simple, let's assume you have all the bills and all the coverages that you have done, you might get 75, 80%. That's the best possible scenario. Then you have another complication, which is what is the network, meaning which are the hospitals where insurance is accepted.
Right.
Your insurance is accepted. What is known as cashless. कैशलेस का मतलब सिंपल है कि आप अस्पताल में चले गए, आपको बगैर कुछ पैसे दिए एडमिशन करा लिया बिकॉज यू हैव दैट कंपनीज इंश्योरेंस.
Got it.
मोस्ट लाइकली द बिलिंग काउंटर विल से आप 50,000 रुपए डेबिट करिए, डिपॉजिट करिए, देन वी विल टेल यू वेदर वी कैन गिव यू कैशलेस.
Oh, ये पार्ट नहीं पता था मुझे.
यस, सो दे विल से आप 50,000 डिपॉजिट कर लीजिएगा, फिर हम आपका इंश्योरेंस का सब चेक करा लेते हैं.
Oh,
ओके,
okay.
इट इज
Interesting.
वेरी वेरी पॉसिबल. अदर्स माइट से देखिए अच्छा आपका ये कंपनी से इंश्योरेंस है,
Hmm.
ठीक है, हमारा पार्टनरशिप नहीं है उनके साथ, तो आपको पहले पे करना पड़ेगा, फिर हम डॉक्यूमेंट दे देंगे, फिर आप क्लेम करिए. Now you imagine in an emergency, you are going to the hospital and they are telling you that एक 1.5 लाख रुपए अभी तुरंत डाल दीजिए. So
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you have the only option is credit card. आप credit
Right.
card swipe करेंगे and then you are like, okay, चलो ठीक है. Then you run around while you're taking care of your family. You are also running around trying to get the paperwork to submit the claim,
True.
right? So there are far too many complications. My only point, a single sentence over there would be that insurance as a product is built with friction, right? The friction is built in so that the claims go down. Our attempt at Q is to essentially make paying for healthcare friction free.
Makes sense. Makes sense. No, I think this adds a lot of clarity on the entire model as such. And given the fact that, as you said, in the best case scenario, you kind of end up getting 75 to 80% of the amount that you claimed, and that is really an eye opener. Given the fact that once we buy a 20 lakh का policy या 10 lakh का policy, हम तो बैठ जाते हैं कि यार हमारे 20 लाख तक के खर्चे covered है. But that kind of gives you that reality check. And it's pro rata
Absolutely.
basis, supplements, ये सब 10 चीजें होती है.
Correct.
Having said that, when you kind of look at a new recently, I would say a very recent phenomena, not that recent, but 4-5 साल से तो ये बहुत popular हो गया, the super top up piece, right? How does
Mhm.
that entire piece play into this industry as such?
Sure. So basically, again, these are financial instruments
Mm-hmm.
created by the insurance company. So let's say your company has given you an insurance policy for, let's say, 5 lakh rupees. You can
Right.
take a top-up policy, which means you can take an additional policy
Mm-hmm.
to take care of other things. So what will happen is, जब आपको जरूरत पड़ेगी, तो पहला आपका 5 लाख रुपए तक की जो पॉलिसी है वो यूज होगा. उसके
Right.
ऊपर जाके फिर next policy kicks in. So this is
Got it.
essentially what the product says. I want to add a caveat here, right?
Mm-hmm.
मैं इंश्योरेंस की खामियां बता रहा हूं, बट आई विल ऑल्सो बी द फर्स्ट वन टू टेल यू यू मस्ट ऑलवेज टेक हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस.
Of
Cube
course.
is not trying to replace health insurance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everybody should take health insurance as early in their life as possible. When you're younger, it is necessarily cheaper. You're also healthier.
True.
You should try and take a policy separately for each person in your family. ये सारी
Mm-hmm.
चीजें करनी जरूरी है. और जितना आप अफोर्ड कर सकते हो उससे थोड़ा ज्यादा खर्चा करके ले लेना, बिकॉज आपकी इनकम बढ़ते जाएगी.
True.
वो पॉलिसी का जो खर्चा है यू विल नॉट फील इट एट
Got
ऑल.
it.
So that's basically what I would say.
Perfect, perfect. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's switch gears here, right? Consumer के point of view से पूरा ecosystem, so I think it's a lot more clear now. Let's take a step back and kind of try and understand this from a B2B perspective on how the business model essentially works, right? One is the interface part that you have created, which is the Cube app, the front end that allows you to scan at a merchant, get instant cashback, get a credit line, and all of that. When you look at it, when you dissect it from a business perspective or from an investor's perspective, how does this model essentially work? What are the partnerships that you had to build to kind of build this kind of a simplified, seamless interface for the front end consumer?
Sure. So, I mean, we have over some 35, 36 different kinds of plugins. Our first and most important one, which we really love to talk about, is our partnership with the NPCI.
Mm-hmm.
We work very closely with the team at the National Payments Corporation of India, who have been extremely supportive, and they have supported this use case of healthcare payments. So, on one side, we have that partnership. We, of
Mm-hmm.
course, have the other fintech stack that allows the entire payment ecosystem to be directly settled into the bank account of every healthcare provider. Over and above the UPI network that exists in the country, we have personally deep relationships with over 13,000 locations of hospitals, clinics, diagnostic centers
Mm-hmm.
across the country so that our customers can be treated better.
Yep.
We needed to be able to, in simple sentence, connect the payer with the provider, the healthcare payer with the healthcare provider. एंड उन दोनों के बीच की जो तार है उसको जोड़ने के लिए पूरा एक फिनटेक का इकोसिस्टम है,
Right.
which includes lender partners and various other people kind of put together
Mm-hmm.
as well as.
Got it. Got it. So for the credit line piece, you would also have multiple lending partnerships in place as
Yes.
well. What I'm really interested about, and if you're kind of open to discussing that, is the cashback piece, right? How essentially
Mhm.
does that come out? Because जहाँ पे, and this is probably something that I have developed as a habit is whenever you hear cashback as a term, सबसे पहले दिमाग में आता है कि who's funding this? कहाँ से आ रहा है? So
Yeah.
I mean, if you're comfortable talking about it, would love to
I
hear.
can, sure, sure.
Yeah,
I can give you broad strokes, right? So
sure.
think of it like this. I am consolidating a large volume of corporate employees and their families' healthcare expenses.
Hmm.
We have over 300 corporates right now. We have close to 2 lakh users on the platform right
Got it.
now. ये सारे लोग जब खर्चा करते हैं क्यूब के थ्रू खर्चा करते हैं तो you imagine my buying power.
Right.
That buying power allows me to secure discounts which I'm passing on to the customers.
Hmm.
That's basically what I'm doing.
Makes sense. Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that will help the curious lot in the audience who are, trying to dissect the business models, understand this better. Having said that, let's move on to the next part of the Zindagi Baat, and which is also the last part of this segment. Uh, as you see, as of now in the fintech industry and overall as well, right, there has been advent of new emerging technologies, be it blockchain, which the craze for which started like almost 5 years back, to generative AI, which kind of popped up a couple of years back and has been revolutionizing almost everything that you see. So, having said that, how do you see this entire piece impacting the experience that you are building for consumers, and have you leveraged any of this, and how do you see the difference?
Yeah. It's interesting you ask that. I'm always a little shy to talk about it because आजकल सभी लोग इसके बारे में बात करते हैं तो ऐसे मतलब एक फैशन बन गया है.
True,
Uh,
true.
but genuinely speaking, what we realized is that we are operating in two complex, regulated, and very needed industries, right? There is finance and there is healthcare, and ये दोनों के intersection पे हमारा business है. So
Hmm.
AI, very specifically generative AI, we are experimenting in the following ways. First and foremost is looking at your healthcare data, right? With consent, with your permission, we are 100% InfoSec compliant. We have 3 ISO certifications. We are HIPAA compliant.
Hmm.
All of those kind of things. Within uske daire ke andar, what
Hmm.
we want to try and do is to try and find patterns in yours and your family's healthcare data,
Hmm.
so that we can try and suggest to you the things that you must do in advance to lead a healthier life. When I say you,
Got
I
it.
don't really mean you. I mean your family members. So imagine if I came to you and told you that, look, basis certain history that we have analyzed, your peer group, your own data, your spending patterns, and so on and so forth, we believe these are the things that you should recommend to your parents that they should do. These
Right.
are the things that we recommend that you should do for your child. So this is one very interesting area, right? Second, all of the data, which is essentially your healthcare reports, your insurance reports, your insurance documentation, your claims, your bills, etc. Sari cheeze. Today you keep it in different pieces of paper. The Qube app allows you to take a picture and upload it.
Hmm.
Essentially, what we want to do, our goal, and we are working on that goal. We haven't reached 100% yet.
Hmm.
Is to give a one-page summary that you can quickly share on WhatsApp with your doctor.
Right.
So when something happens and your doctor wants to understand before you cannot give them a full file, you can say, Doctor, I'm just going to shoot you across right now on WhatsApp a one-page summary ताकि आपको पता चल जाए मेरे बारे में और मेरी family history के बारे में, right?
That is
So
game changing.
so that is something that we are doing. And the third piece and final piece here is essentially trying to build a composite structure of your health insurance information, your financial history, and your income levels, and your spending patterns, so that we can actually provide you better insurance products.
Hmm.
So these are the three
Amazing.
pieces that we are working
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think this was really inspiring. I specifically loved the part where you said कि यार एक snapshot में पूरा आपका medical records और history एक summary चले जाता है, which is really needed because my family doctor, right, the way I have experienced this piece is they write it down on the notepad somewhere कि यार इसका ये है और वो इतना बड़ा I have been going there for almost 20 years and वहां से इतना बड़ा 200 पेज का बुक है मेरे नाम पे
on.
और ऐसे हजारों बुक उसके लॉकर में वहां पे पड़े हुए हैं. And
Correct.
she's a 65, 70-year-old lady who still practices, a very sweet lady, by the way. But उनके पूरे records है तो she has an assistant who will get that for her, वो पूरा go through करेगी. What happens is
Correct.
sometimes you still don't get the clearer picture when you're shifting through the records and all of that. But एक अगर summary मिल जाती है of what has happened with me for the last 20 years or so, or in this case, whatever data I have of myself, उसका भी
Yeah.
अगर मिल जाता है, that is a lot more helpful.
Absolutely.
So I think that is game changing, and I'm looking forward to experiencing that as well sometime. Uh, Having said that, I think it has been a pleasure having you here, Mr. Chris.
Same here.
Amazing. You have been really inspiring. Great entrepreneurship journey, great insights, and thank you for breaking down the business models and giving us insights on the healthcare finance system. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shez. It was a pleasure being here.
Likewise.